So first of all, thank you for joining us at our virtual open event. Obviously, we would much prefer to welcome you into college and show you our facilities and meet you that way. But hopefully this event will give you enough information and answer any questions that you've got about your course. So first off, I'm just going to share my screen to my short presentation. Like I said, it's only a couple of minutes. Okay, so you should be able to see that on your screen now. So first of all, welcome to St Helens College and thank you for considering us for September. So obviously we're really pleased that you are considering coming to join us in September and would love it if you have put your application in. So if you've not yet put your application in and you do want to apply, you can do so on our website just by following on the link at the bottom of the screen. Just type that into your web browser, you can put your application in there. If you have applied, don't worry, you don't need to do anything else at the moment. If you've not yet applied and you do want to apply, you can do so by following that link. We would recommend doing your application as soon as possible, just so that we get the opportunity then to do your interview and everything before enrolments and that sort of thing start. So obviously you're here today to hear about graphic design, but they are the other courses that we offer at college. So if you've logged in a few minutes early, you might have heard a little bit about the games, animation and VFX course that we offer, but you are here now for your graphic design course. That's just a little bit of information on what else we have to offer at college across our campuses. So as a student at St Helens College, you are entitled to some benefits. So free breakfast. If you're in before 8:45 on the days that you're doing college, you will be entitled to a free breakfast. So that'll just set you up for the day, ready for your day ahead. You will be entitled to free transport as well. So all of our students do get a free college bus pass, a free college bus or a free Arriva bus pass. So we do have a college bus that covers Wigan, St Helens, Knowsley. And if you are on one of those routes, you can use our college bus for free. If you're not on one of our college bus routes, you will be entitled to a free Arriva bus pass. So you'll always have free transport for college. You will also get free Microsoft Office 365 package, so useful for things like coursework and that sort of thing. So obviously, if you've got anything that you need to use Word or anything along those lines, you can download that on your computer or laptop at home for free. Student discount, so that's discounts in restaurants, the cinema, clothes shops, that sort of thing. You'll get that then, you'll get that discount with your student pass through college. And then the bottom three, so bursaries, free college lunch, and assistance to buy course equipment and uniforms. Sorry, so that is done on an independent financial assessment. So at enrolment stage, you'll be assessed to see if you are entitled to those benefits, and it could just be things like support if you go on any trips or buying a uniform for college or anything along those lines. At college, we have an excellent safeguarding and wellbeing team, and so they work across our campuses and they're really dedicated to supporting our students and staff. So if you've got anything that you're a little bit stressed about, or if you're struggling at all, or it could be something that's going on at home, it could be something college related, any support that you need, our staff are there to help you. You can go and see them at any point throughout the day and they'll be there on hand to give you some advice and a little bit of support. We also have a learner support team, so if you have any additional learning needs, could be something along the lines of dyslexia, where you may need support in class or support or extra time with exams, we can offer that as well, but you would just have to let us know at enrolment stage. And then finally, our social media accounts. So all of our students, well, a lot of our students go on to amazing things when they leave our college, and we like to share that with our new students. So all of our students that have a particularly good success story will be put onto our social media accounts, and we share them, so it's a little bit of inspiration for you to see what past students are up to now, and so you might want to go on there and just see what our students have gone on to after they've left college. At the bottom of the screen, you'll also see an email for our admissions team, and so that email is just useful if you've got any questions about your application or anything like that. If you've applied for a course and you've now changed your mind and you want to swap to something else, drop our admissions team an email and they will sort that for you. At the moment, our staff are contacting all of our applicants. So if you've applied for college and you've not yet had your interview, You will be contacted either this week or next. If you don't hear from us, please contact our admissions team. So if you've not yet had your interview and you don't hear from us, say by the end of this week, please just drop us an email to the admissions team, because it could be that we've got the wrong details for you on the system, or a typo or anything when you've applied. So yeah, if you've not heard from us by Friday, please drop us an email and we'll look into that for you. Okay, so that's the end of it from me. So I am just going to pass over to Graham, and he'll be able to talk you through the course, answer any questions that you've got. So if you have got any questions, you can either use the chat or the Q&A facility at the bottom of the screen, and I will pass them over. Okay, thanks.
All right, I'm just going to share my screen stuff with you to go through some of the graphic design stuff. Like Bethan said before, I'm Graham Williams. I'm the program leader for the level 3 BTEC in graphic design. So that covers the first year and the second year of the course. We're actually starting the new version of the qualification in this coming September, which is nice. So you'll be the first ones to undergo this new version of the course, which I'm quite excited about. I'm hoping it'll be that little bit more flexible than the old version of the qualification. So I'm hoping you can see my screen right now, and I've got the just a little presentation to run through with you. So here we go. So the main course, the course content, the kinds of things that we do on the course, the stuff that we cover over the 2 years is not limited to the stuff I'm going to run through with you now, but it's certainly an example of the kinds of stuff that we do. So the course is for anyone aged 16 to 18 with no existing level 3 or A-level qualification. If you're doing your GCSEs, then obviously that would apply to you. If you're interested in working with digital and traditional illustration, as well as magazine layouts, creating typography and fonts, packaging design, advertising, those are the kinds of things that we'll cover on the course. Some of the examples of work I'm going to show you, you will see cover plenty of those types of things. Once you've fully completed the course, if you do the full 2 years of the course, so the full year 12, year 13 experience of sixth form, if you like, you would be graduating with the equivalent of 3 A levels. From those 3 A levels, the equivalent of, you would be accruing UCAS points, which vast majority of my students then would be using to apply to university, whether that would be the University Centre St Helens that we've got a BA Honours in Graphic Design at the college, which is run through the University Centre, which is validated by Chester University, or whether that's going on to places like Liverpool John Moores or UCLan, Salford, Manchester, those kinds of places. Some of the units that we'll cover will be things like typefaces and letter forms, magazine design, as I've already said, digital traditional illustration, logos and branding, photo manipulation, so things like Photoshop, as well as then traditional, more like collage versions of those, as well as app concepts, so making our own versions of smartphone app prototypes, putting animations into them, making them interactive and things like that. Some of the main software that we use would be things like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign and After Effects. So Photoshop, probably the most famous one of them for photo manipulation, altering images, brightness, contrast, adding in layers and making those things look fantastical, like filters and effects. We've got Illustrator for vector illustration work. So anything from the size of a phone icon to the size of a billboard is what we would use Illustrator for. Nothing pixelates, everything stays nice and crisp. Always handy for when you're doing graphic design and you want to multiply things so many times, do the variations, create many variations and variants for things for a client. We can do those things quickly with Illustrator and have them all always be nice and crisp and clear. InDesign, which we use for more of the magazine and layout kind of work. So if you wanted to, say, for example, produce a magazine and you want certain elements to be on every single page, like page numbers, article titles, the name of the magazine, the name of the newspaper, whatever those things would be for print layout, that's what we would use InDesign for, putting all of those things together. And After Effects, primarily composition software or compositing software is what it would normally be called, but we usually use that for our animation. If you watch YouTube videos, which I'm sure, you know, I think pretty much everybody has watched a YouTube video by now, many of them will have animated intros or animated credits, animated lower thirds that appear at the bottom of the screen telling you the name of the person talking or the name of the company they work for. the name of the channel, subscribe with a little animation and a notification bell animation. Those are the kinds of things that we can produce in After Effects. If you come to graphic design not having done a lot of traditional artwork before, or not a lot of digital, you might have been coming to us having done art GCSE or not having done art GCSE. It might be that you did a media course and you liked a Photoshop unit that you did, and that was what got you interested in graphic design. We do cover both aspects on the course. We are primarily digital, but we do cover both. So if you've never used any of the software before, we literally start from day one. This is the software, this is the interface. We take you through everything from the ground up. And if it's traditional artwork and you're not used to drawing and using measured drawing or pen and ink, acrylic paint, mark making with print making and using tools to carve out lino and stuff like that, everything is from the ground up. We don't presume everybody knows everything when they come in. We don't know everything. We've got our certain expertise, we've got our certain skills, but that's why you've got a teaching team that's got a wide range of skills, because everybody's got their own specialist areas. I'll click through to the next bit. So the entry requirements, as well as English and maths and additional activities that you would have on the course. So to join the course, I still say for GCSEs a grade A starter C, just because I was so ingrained for saying that to years, but now it's the grade 9 to 4. If you have English, great. If you have maths and English, even better. But if you have one or the other, we do offer the facility for you to be able to sit a resit for the one that you might not have been able to get a grade 4 or above. So I have a number of students in the past who've aced all of their exams, but they might be low in confidence when it comes to maths. They will join my course and study a GCSE maths resit for 3 hours a week. So it's like 2 90-minute sessions over the course of the week, instead of your usual 5 or 6 sessions of maths a week and stuff like that, like you have in high school. But it allows people to study alongside my course as well as get the resit, so you can potentially complete my course with an extra GCSE as well as the 3 equivalent A levels that you'd get for studying the BTEC. For the students who, if you don't manage to get your English and maths, we do have a level 2 art and design course for students who've sometimes, it might be that they've been ill in hospital or something like that for a few months. They couldn't sit the GCSE, so they've started on a level 1 or a level 2 course, but there aren't digital routes on the level 2. And then they've come to my course as a result of having studied the GCSE resits as well as the level 2 art and design. The level 2 art and design is the equivalent of 4 GCSEs itself. The graphic design students can also gain extra qualifications in Microsoft Office skills and Adobe Certificates. Now, the Adobe Certificates are probably the ones that sound a lot more exciting and a lot more interesting in terms of how they relate to the course. So that would be, we use browser-based versions for practice exams on Photoshop, Illustrator, and InDesign. Once you've done those tests and you've acquired the amount of skills and the way within which you have to work to achieve the results on the tests, we can then put you in for the tests and you can gain actual Adobe certificates in those pieces of software that we've got there. They are recognized qualifications. They're not recognized in terms of being a level 2 like a GCSE or a level 3 like an A level or things like that, but they are actually official qualifications. It's not a Graham prints a certificate and puts your name on it. It is an actual recognized qualification. Similarly for Microsoft Office skills, we can try and fit in those, but they will be qualifications to do with Microsoft Office. So you'd be looking at things like Word, PowerPoint, Excel, probably being the main 3, but we usually try to gear more towards the Adobe certificates because they relate more to our course. In terms of attendance, somebody on the last talk was asking about attendance. We primarily attend a minimum of 3 full days a week. So those days can change, but I will give you, for example, this year's timetable was Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So students weren't timetabled on Tuesdays and Fridays. On those days when they aren't timetabled, some students who didn't have computers at home would actually come into the college and use, they would like book in for using laptops in the library. They would come to rooms that had a seat or 2 free and ask if they could produce extra work during those times. So we always try and accommodate people who might not have access to the software and stuff like that at home, or some people just find it easier to study in college because they know if they're sitting at home, they're more tempted by TV and phones and, you know, games consoles and stuff like that. But the lessons are normally 9 a.m. or 10:45 start. Afternoon sessions are normally 1:15. All those things are subject to change over the course of the summer and with the ongoing pandemic situation that we've got, obviously. But I'm just giving you examples of what was this year's timetable. You're expected to attend every timetable session. If you can't attend for any reason, whether that's requiring to care after a family member, whether that's, you know, dental appointments, doctor's appointments, just generally being ill and not being able to come in, you're expected to notify us either through Yammer, which is the college's social media. So it's only built within the college, so it's private groups set up by staff. So you will, as part of the college, you get your Microsoft Office 365, as already mentioned before. We heavily use 365 as part of the graphic design course. We use the Yammer a lot. We've been using Microsoft Teams to deliver remote learning during the lockdown. So I can share my screen, students can share their screens with me. We can chat back and forth. And we're getting that constant feedback and constant contact with students, which is really nice. But we also use OneNote a lot, which is, we use that as our blogging platform. So that every single session I can stand up in front of the class, deliver my objectives for the day, what we're going to go through, what skills I expect you to be able to produce and work on as we go throughout the session. You have access to those session objectives every single session, and then your access to them remains permanent. So if you ever are absent, you can be able to find out exactly what's been going on. If you go home and you can't quite remember something I've said, you'd be able to log on to your OneNote at home. You'd be able to find all of the things that I've commented on during the day, all the session objectives. I've put up the examples of work, any tutorials I've recorded for using software. I upload them to Microsoft Stream. So we try to make it access as sort of free ranging as we can, in terms of being able to speak to us, being able to see the things that we're posting up as members of staff, or even within the group. We'll sometimes post them on Yammer and you'll be able to access them as well. Unfortunately, poor attendance can result in a disciplinary meeting. So we'll sometimes have people who are ill. Obviously, we can't help being ill, but sometimes if people have got poor attendance and things like that, it can jeopardize your place on the course. So if your attendance is good, you let us know when you're going to be absent and things like that. We shouldn't have any problems. In terms of finance and travel, it was already mentioned before about the bus passes. Just move that out the way, sorry. The course should not incur any tuition fees for you. It should be free, like your regular sixth form experience in school would be after your GCSEs. The free bus passes are available on a termly basis, so you get 3 of them throughout the year. I think pretty much every single one of my students takes advantage of that, apart from any who might live close enough to walk and stuff like that. But it's really nice to be able to get the bus pass thing. As I mentioned, you can get the Office 365 and OneNote being one of the main things that we use. You'd also get a terabyte of OneDrive storage, which is quite a lot. It's going to cost you a fair penny to go out and buy yourself a terabyte hard drive, but you get the online version of OneDrive with the terabyte for free while you're a student at the college. You also get those as 5 free licenses. So that would mean that you'll be able to use all of the Microsoft applications in college, as well as then on a phone, on a tablet, on a laptop. All of the work syncs across all 3, or up to 5 licenses, as it says there. So if you've got a laptop and a desktop computer, you'd be able to put it on both, access it on both, save everything to OneDrive. The same work goes across all of the machines, all of the devices. Really nice, and it keeps everything nice and up to date. And it's really handy for sharing work back and forth. And when it comes to equipment that we might require you to use throughout the year, we normally try to keep those things for at a minimum. We will provide as many pieces of equipment as we can, in terms of, say, for example, we won't expect you to go out and buy your own lino cutting tools for printmaking, but we might ask you to buy an A3 sketchbook every now and again. But we'll always try and give you a week's notice at least for those things. And we're never going to turn around and say, okay, everybody needs a 12-inch iPad Pro by tomorrow. We're not going to expect people to be spending loads and loads of money. Everything will be small and as cheap for the equipment as we can keep it. Okay, so that's the end of that part of my bit of information. I'll show you some examples of work from this year's current first and second year students. If you do have any emails that come up as a result of having listened to anything I've talked about, even if it's something that doesn't come up in now, my email is at the bottom of the page there. So just remember to put the 1 at the end, otherwise it goes to somebody else. So gwilliams1@sthelens.ac.uk. I'll just I'll show you these examples of work, and I'll just tell you about them as they're popping through. So this is an example of stuff that was drawn primarily on sketchbooks or on paper, which has then been digitized onto the computers, and then we have some stuff which is wholly made on the computer. So say, for example, this example here, movie posters for the 1980s horror film Friday the 13th Part 3, it included 3D technology. This was originally worked on through these pieces of artwork. So all of these thumbnails were probably about this size when they were originally produced, then colored in digitally as quick rough sketch versions. You'll notice there's print versions of the hockey mask that the main villain wears that have been then placed over textures and stuff. So digital artwork up here, digitally colored in traditional artwork here, and then purely traditional, so sketches as well as then ink and masking here. Textured versions there, so different surfaces applied and then sketches over the top mixed in with ink. And then we move forward, they've been digitally colored and altered, and then 3D anaglyph versions produced to try and create that old 3D kind of red and blue glasses version there. Same project, so film posters. Now this version, thumbnail drawings again, digitally colored in. This sketch was probably about this big, and then this piece here is actually black sugar paper, and it's being created with masking tape. So this was probably about an A1 piece of paper, so bigger than a folded out newspaper. And all of the lines in it were created using masking tape. These have then been inverted, so turned into negative here. And then original blueprint drawings of the Nostromo ship that is used in the film Alien have all been turned into teeth here. Human torso x-ray, so you can hopefully you can probably guess there that that's ribs and lungs on an x-ray which have been turned upside down to try and sort of emulate the look of a xenomorph alien head. And this text here, although it looks very digital, and it is digital now in terms of it's had green added to it and stuff like that. This is actually the pattern that was formed on the top of the radiator in my classroom. So the top of the radiator is built up of a metal grate, and the student photographed that and then chopped out certain parts of it to create that text, which I thought was quite a clever way of doing it. He's like made a pixelated typeface from the grill of a radiator, so I thought that was quite inventive. Same students again, digitally altering images of fire. And then this was a version that he made at home during lockdown, just using regular household objects. So he photographed an egg, and he didn't have access to the proper version of Photoshop for a while. So he was trying to like crudely cut it out using like Microsoft Paint and drawing around it with white and stuff like that before he could then get access to Photoshop and putting glows on. So I thought that was quite inventive. And then other variations. So dripped ink forming part of the letters. And then if you haven't seen any parts of the film Alien or the Alien Isolation games, the alien characters, when they bleed, produce like an acid. So it's almost like it's a sort of very weaponized kind of character. And he's tried to emulate the acid burning through the metal with the inclusion of these like little smoke effects over the top. This was for a double game that my students remade. So they were tasked with, if you've never seen the game Double, it's like a really, really intense version of Snap. So the versions of Double that we had computer games, Pixar versions, and things like that. And so things like Finding Nemo characters, Wreck-It Ralph characters, Simpsons characters were another variation. So there was one based on computer games. So these were all being sketched out and then digitized afterwards. The rather sort of complicated looking series of numbers here is the algorithm that's used to generate double cards. The idea being that in a whole double set of cards, every single card will have at least one match to every single other card in the deck. So that's why it becomes like a very intense game of Snap, because every card will have at least one match to another card, and it's very fun to play. And as you can imagine, quite complicated to design, but the overall effect is really good. Conscious of the time, so I'll just let some of these roll through. So you'll notice film poster project popping up quite a bit. And then we'd taken that one and it had been applied to mock-ups on the previous version, based on the anime Akira. This was a live cities project. When we've got the live cities, that was an example of key cities around the UK. We tried to almost do it as a live project the first time round. It's since been the competition was a few years ago, but we really liked the brief, so we've kind of kept it around. We'll hopefully have some variation of it this year with the new qualification. But it was advertising monuments or artifacts, objects, sculptures, stadiums, key buildings and stuff like that within cities around the UK, and then producing them as stamps and things like that. These typefaces, you'll hopefully be able to see, you can see like the number 4 in there, the number 5, the number 3. You'll probably see at the edges of a W there and things like that, and the edges of an M. They are every letter of the alphabet and every number from 0 to 9 all laid over the top of each other with different colors to create like abstract typography. This was a client brief that we produced last year for one of our exams. The current version of the course doesn't have exams. Everything is more coursework based, but this was a live brief for the Royal Society. Sorry, I can't remember what it actually stands for. RSPB. It's like bird sanctuary kind of stuff, and trying to entice sort of children to be more interested in wildlife. So this student approached it from a very sort of cartoony, almost game icon kind of basis, hoping to draw kids in that way and make them more interested in it. So these were all the different elements that he was using on it, based on like a rubber duck toy. So there was the original one that he had before he developed it. And that was a very different variation on the same project from a student. Here's his versions of the double cards, and you can actually see there some of the test versions of the double cards. So you'd be able to pick out certain things like these icons that might be repeated on certain ones. So if that card went down and you had this card, you would be able to match it through that there. This project, vector animals. So we do this one using Adobe Illustrator. The idea being that you can only use so many geometric shapes to create characters. And then these are all the different variations on it. So Reese, the student that produced this, started off with one version of a bunny, and you can see the different elements that are used to create it here. So we've got triangles, rectangles or squares for teeth, whole circles to create these parts of the top part of the lip and stuff like that for the mouth. And then we've got ellipses for parts of the ears. And then it makes more sense then when you see the other animals that Reese produces as part of his work. These were vector skulls that we were producing for Sugar Skull projects. More double cards there. This is one of the first projects I get my students to do when they join the course. We get to do some experimenting in Photoshop. Reese's idea was that he had all of these different game characters and like cartoon characters all popping up on the screen, but they were actually starting to wreck the computer interface. So there's like cracks in the screen here where a knife has actually shattered the screen, or the top corner of the desktop wallpaper is being ripped out, and the Pikachu character is reaching over the top and things like that. And then that's how certain parts of the layers were built up. So we've got, you can see, obviously see less characters in here, more being added, and it's building up layer by layer with all of the different pieces being added. So we do a lot of cataloging of our work and showing the development of our work from the beginning to the end. I'll just let some of these play. I'll run out of time. So from what you could see before, from when we had the two white skulls on the screen, those were the basis skulls that Reese used for his work. So he had a complicated version with more shadow in, and then he had the more simple version. He chose the simple version. Then he generated a series of geometric repeated shapes, which he then masked in over the top to create his own versions of like vector sugar skull illustrations, like a Day of the Dead kind of festival. So product mock-ups is something that we'll do quite a lot of on the course. So you'll see those populating quite a number of slides, because we will design things on paper, we will design things onto the computer using the original sketches and things like that. But then we'll build on those and start to produce, once we've got the digital final versions, we then start to put them onto products as mock-ups to see what they would look like. It's quite surprising sometimes how something might look great on screen or great as a printout, but then when you try and apply it to the actual product that you want it to be used to advertise, or what you want it to be based on, they do become quite difficult to sort of translate at times. You'll have things that look really good in one format, and then when you apply them to another, they don't look as good. So that's one thing we'll often do. We're using things to advertise on a magazine, so we'll design them on screen, but then we'll put them onto magazine mock-ups. We want to see what those things actually look like if they were based in the real world. You'd be surprised how things can really change when they're applied to actual objects. These ones here, they look digital and they were created digitally, but these are actually made on the laser cutter that we have in the college. So the student produced these probably on screen about the size that you're seeing them now, but in real life they were probably about 40 odd centimeters across, maybe 50 centimeters across. So these were cut out of mount board and then placed around our room and on the staircases for when we had the exhibition last year, the end of year exhibition. So look, they are digitally produced, but then on actual practical objects. So the shadows that you're seeing on these here aren't applied digitally. These are actual shadows from where they've been put onto windows and put onto white walls and stuff like that. Another example of the RSPB from before with the King Duck, but this one's a sort of a slightly older child audience. So illustrating the examples and colours and shapes of different birds, putting those things into almost like fact file things into a book, and designing water bottles. These things could be given out at events. So it was that was the client, and these were the things that we were trying to sell. This student, Olivia, who's just finished the second year of the course, is now going to successfully gained her place at UCLan, so University in Preston, and she's going to be studying graphic design and illustration for the next 3 years, having successfully completed the course with me. This student, Matt Isherwood, Matt actually came to us from the tech campus, and he's just finished the course with me now, and he's going to be we say moving upstairs. He's going to be going to the 3rd floor of our primary building, the SKB building. And he's going to be now studying the BA Honours Graphic Design course that I mentioned earlier. So University Centre St Helens course, but it's validated by Chester University. So the teaching takes place in St Helens with your tutors in the room with you and stuff like that. But when you join the course, you actually get access to online facilities and things like that from Chester University. And when you graduate, you would graduate from Chester University. These versions of posters for Blade Runner that Matt produced. So all of these typefaces that you're seeing on here, so the Blade Runner and the A to Z that he's made here, all of these he made on a font creation piece of software called FontStruct. So he's trying to emulate old broken CRT monitors, so interference on a screen, like poor quality CCTV. And if you've never seen the film Blade Runner, one of the things in it is an origami paper unicorn. So he actually figured out how to make the unicorn out of paper. Could never quite get it to go as straight as he wanted to. He always ended up with like crinkles on this part here and this part here. So then he made it digitally and then applied a very subtle paper texture to it to try and make it look more like the ones in that he wanted. So he tried it practically and then ended up digitizing it as a result to get the effect he was after. This typeface that Matt created, produced here on a mock-up, once again, we're using the mock-ups to sort of sell to a viewer how these things might look. He started to produce it originally as white shapes, and I said it reminded me of, in feedback sessions, I said it reminded me of the work of the artist Mondrian. So then Matt took it upon himself to start redesigning the typeface with all of the addition of colour. So the typeface is he called it Mondrian, and then he started to apply color blocks, as you can see in Mondrian's work here, to each of the different letters. The idea being that you could have a negative version of it produced in white, so we could have white against black. And then if you wanted to have lighter backgrounds, you could apply the black version as seen on the left here. This work produced by Olivia, all done as thought bubbles. So all of these were hand drawn originally, and then she digitized these, and she was trying to communicate through typography effects of mental health. So excuse the spelling mistake on visible, but this was initial rough work. The idea of masking different parts of what the brain is thinking into the illustration of the brain, whereas the outwards sort of speech part is saying it's fine. It's showing that inside the person's brain they might actually be struggling and things like that. So it was trying to communicate mental health issues using only typography and minimal imagery. So I think it's actually a really nice idea. It's kind of, we use typography a lot to try and communicate, but obviously we don't want to just write out what we're trying to communicate. There's times where we're trying to do it using hints or using subtle language, like we will be on those examples with the mental health. Olivia was into photography as well, so she included some of her photography work in her portfolio. This student, Emily, she actually came to me from the level 2 course. So you'll see Emily Manning's name popping up in the top left throughout the slideshow. Emily actually did really well at level 2 and got a distinction at level 2, and she's since joined my course and she got a number of distinctions on the level 3 for the first year as well. She's coming back to start the second year in September. She's very much a student that likes to work both traditionally and digitally. So you can see here original photos of a sketchbook, and then that character then being digitized and produced in Photoshop using a graphics tablet to emulate the illustrative style that she wanted. So using different digital brushes to emulate paint and things like that, but then having the option using the digital software to change the color of the paint much more easily than if she had to redo all of the sections by hand over and over again. Emily's Dobble game was Harry Potter, so you'll see different illustrations and icons for Harry Potter popping up throughout these sections, I'm sure. Once again, that you can see in here, that is the original genesis for this idea. So that quick 15-20 second thumbnail sketch is the thing that ended up inspiring this final version, which you've seen on the book cover mock-ups and the mug mock-ups and stuff like that. So started there, worked through, actually based on the silhouette of the back of one person's head, and then it was used to sort of break into this wall section. So this version of the image is actually pixelating because it was done as a really small thumbnail, so it was smaller than this when it was originally produced. It was probably smaller than one of them, actually. The color that you can see there breaking through is what influenced the color. So that from that is the idea of what we've got there. So really nice development process by Emily there. And see the development of a cover going through the different variations there. So almost like well lit to nighttime, adding glows onto the windows. The white starting to pop more against the black, the darkened versions of the roof tiles and things like that. And then adding in more subtle lights onto the character's face. So there's a big difference between how the character looks in the middle version to how the character looks on the final version. Adding that sort of soft glow, and with the book being called Ghost and Empties, it almost gives the person like a ghostly like quality by having those that light and almost that halo going around them. Photo manipulation work by Emily there. So they were all the original versions of images that she'd used, and that this was the first day. This was what she'd had when she was learning how to use Photoshop, and then that was what she produced by the end of that mini project. So making a whole campfire scene full of different elements, like things in like a briefcase or a suitcase, different oil lamp textures, the edge of a tent, a wolf and its cubs getting closer and closer to the fire, generating all of the parts for the tree, and this basically making a forest out of nothing was kind of what she did there, trying to make it look as realistic as she could. These were Emily's geometric animals that she started to apply to different product mock-ups, almost like they were for a kid's range of clothes. So you can see a clever way of making the head of this chameleon. And that was how it started off. So probably 3 circles and a triangle. And then it ended up as this, all that development. So that's actually a fly. It's a bit difficult to see the wings there, but that's actually a fly. And she animated the tongue flicking out and grabbing the fly. This was actually an urban myth branding project that I get the students to do. So we pick an urban myth from the many that are out there. So Loch Ness Monster, poltergeists, werewolves, all of those kinds of things, vampires, and then people brand, my students brand them as if they were real companies. So this was one that was to do with government using subliminal messaging to get people to play a particular game and to become better at basically piloting weaponry and things like that. So it was the idea of drawing people in using computer games, but there's actually subtle hints like I want you, violent simulation, join your nation, and things like that are peppered throughout this work. So your country needs you written in here. So it's the idea that you were subtly being influenced while playing the game to actually take on what the urban myth was communicating. And this is the version of the logo that Emily came up with. Actually tried making it out of paper before digitizing it, similarly to how Matt did when he did the Blade Runner unicorn from earlier on. And then there's a version of the double characters for Harry Potter.
Graham, sorry, we've got another session starting in about 10 minutes, so we will have to wrap up shortly.
Yep.
That's okay.
No problem. Yep. So that's pretty much everything I'd have to say there in terms of the graphics course. I've obviously, could obviously show more examples of work and things like that. But if there's any questions, I'll happily answer any of them. Or please email me and I'll be able to get back to you via email.
Brilliant. So I did put in the chat facility to, if there's any questions, to pop them in, but nothing has come in. But obviously you've been quite thorough there and showed like a lot of students' work and things like that. I know that you've put your email up on your slides as well, so hopefully anyone's got that, and they do get a follow-up email as well to thank them for attending. So if anything comes in, we'll forward it on to you. But thank you so much, and thank you to the students that have joined as well. Hopefully you found it really useful, and hopefully you do want to join us in September. So thanks, Graham.
Nice.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.